So today's topic is about communicating with your spouse about sex. Now, let me just say that I have come to learn that sex is actually a very significant pain point for a lot of marriages. Okay? And most marriages go through some seasons of difficulty in communication about the topic. Okay? And by and large, among people of goodwill, disciples of Jesus even, right? People who truly want to deny themselves and love their spouse and really serve them and meet their needs, it is primarily a problem of communication. Because we assume that people aren't being vindictive or petty or anything like that. We assume that people are really doing their best and they really want to love and serve one another, but it's a matter of understanding one another and communicating. So the title for today, or the subtitle for today, because we're going to be into 3 sessions, this week, 2 weeks from now, and 2 weeks from then. And that will be in this topic, this heading, communicating with your spouse about sex, the subtitle being setting the table and clearing obstacles. Okay, that's our subtitle for today. So this is a repeated slide that we show in each of our sessions. It just represents how Susan and I look at Christian marriage, and that really there are 3 parts to it, 3 big parts, which are all made up of a bunch of little parts. Okay, but the big parts are being great friends, being great partners, and being great lovers. So we're going to be talking the next 3 sessions about being great lovers. We're going to be working on that one. I'm not going to teach all these because, again, as I said, I really want to just introduce concepts and then get into discussion about it. But these are what I think of as the 5 really must-know sex sections of Scripture. Okay, if you want to know what the Scriptures say about sex, these are the 5 sections that I recommend that you know. Genesis 1 through 4 has a lot of great stuff about how God created man and woman and how the first man and woman started procreating and filling the world and so forth. So let me focus on this 3rd line, which is in the beginning of chapter 4. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived. Now, that's actually from New King James Version. From the NIV, it says, now Adam made love to Eve, his wife, and she conceived. So the thing I want to draw out from this and just suggest that you think about is that actually the Hebrew word is to know, which is a euphemism, okay? It's not, in other words, in Hebrew, there's not a lot of real explicit sexual language or anatomical language. They use euphemisms or phrases which you know what they're talking about. It's just not real graphic. Okay? But in addition to, it's not that they were afraid to sort of be straight shooting with us. The word is actually to know, and it's a Hebrew word, chada, although I'm not a Hebrew scholar, and it's an experiential kind of knowing. So not a knowing that you can get from books, not a knowing that you can get from conversation, but a knowing that you get by experiencing. Mm-hmm. And that's just an interesting thought, that the Hebrew word for to make love to, or to have sex with, or to have relations with, depending on your translation,
to lay with,
is Adam knew his wife. Okay, so one of the things we're going to be focusing on is that having a really great sex life is really about developing your relationship. It's not just a fun activity like a hobby. it's something richer, something deeper, something that God intended specifically for marriage. And so that's the one I would say there. In Leviticus 18, Leviticus 18 is actually about sexual immorality. But the reason I put it up there is that it's interesting what is left out. That there are certain things that are left out of that list. It mentions 13 different ways of doing incest. It mentions sex during a woman's period, which, by the way, I consider to be rooted in the ceremonial, historical prohibitions and concerns about blood. Okay, so you'll make your own decisions about whether you feel okay. I certainly, and we certainly don't think that the prohibition against having sex during the woman's period, although it was prohibited in Leviticus, we don't think it carries over to the new covenant in the same way. You guys can make your own decisions after you talk about it. Adultery, homosexuality, bestiality, other things. Those are immoral. Okay? But notice it doesn't have anything about other sexual acts you might think of. Even, oral sex is not mentioned as a prohibited practice. Just some food for thought. Now, you may decide whether you want to do that or whether you don't want to do that, but if you're looking for a definition of sexual immorality, because Jesus talks about don't be sexually immoral, but if you're looking for a definition, what does that mean? Then I would imagine Leviticus 18 is the best place to look, right? Because he would be drawing on what their understanding of sexual immorality was. Proverbs 5 and 6 and the Song of Songs has some interesting passages which I won't focus on this session. 1 Corinthians 7, though, is a really important passage. In fact, it is the definitive and most descriptive and instructive section of text in the New Testament about married sex. And in fact, I've just taken some excerpts. Here one, it says, the husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Each spouse, and this is not a quote, I've paraphrased it, each spouse yields their body to the other. So one of the important points of this is that in the married bedroom, it's really a mutual relationship. It's not about one party dominating the other. It's about each yielding and serving and giving a beautiful gift from God to meet the needs and to build up the other. Okay? So you can, and it also says, do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent, and then only for a limited time. So if someone were actually going to if someone asked me, Steve, me and my wife, we've decided, we're just not going to have sex anymore. We're just it's not that high a priority for us. Yeah, I would encourage them from this passage. I think that the way of things and the Bible would say differently. Now, it doesn't go out and give a hard command. I mean, married couples can make up their own minds, okay? But if they were asking my advice, I would say, you know what? Ongoing sex in a Christian marriage is healthy, and it adds something. It adds a spice. It adds some excitement. It adds something special. And oh, by the way, if you've agreed that, it's possible that one party wants to not have sex more than the other party, and the other party is just going along with it, and that would be bad. That would be bad if it wasn't truly a mutual agreement. But this says, 1 Corinthians 7 says, well, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, then come back together again. So So there's some biblical foundations for you. You can read those at your own pace. Let me just introduce. Okay, so what we want, what Susan's and my hope and prayer for all of you and any who are also in this group and who are going to catch up on whatever's been being recorded, or anyone who hears this in the future. But our hope and prayer is that you guys would not suffer pain and conflict over sex in your marriage. Instead, that it would be a source of love and pleasing one another, that it would be a source of understanding and knowing each other, and that it would be a gift freely and eagerly given from each one to the other. And oh, by the way, it's also for procreation, that is making babies. Okay? So another really great thing to keep in mind is it's not just about whether you have sex, but a lot of it has to do with what attitude you bring to the occasion. Okay? Like, for instance, if your partner is unwilling to have sex, then it's not going to happen. But if they're indifferent or uninterested, but you somehow convince them to engage, is that going to make you feel really loved? No. What if they're willing, but, okay, sure, let's get this over with. Does that make you feel really loved? No. So maybe the green words on here. Welcoming. So, like, for instance, if you prompt your spouse, hey, what do you say we make love tonight? And now I'm not saying that's the way you do it, but maybe that's the way you do it. If the response is welcoming, inviting, like they get into the game, they get into the process, or if they're dragging their feet, you're back into the mediocre. But really, I mean, how much more loved are you going to feel if you've initiated and your spouse is welcoming, inviting, okay, generous, engaged, enthusiastic, and eager? Are these good words? Yes. And just think, like, what is it you're trying to do? If you're the one who's not the initiator, if you're the initiated, the one who is being initiated with, right? What is it you're trying to get done? Are you just trying to get this over with? Or are you actually trying to make your spouse feel so loved? So just think about all these attitude words. What attitude do you bring to the vacation? What attitude do you bring to the experience? What attitude do you bring to the party? And are you truly making one another feel loved? It's just a prompt for going to our homework for the next couple of weeks. And it's not that you need to be reading this right now. It's not that you need to be reading this right now. It's that I gave you more than the typical number of discussion questions. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Please commit yourself to at least getting together one time or twice between now and the next time we meet. Okay? So that's one time a week for an hour or two. In other words, really sit down. Give it some time. It doesn't need to be limited to an... And by the way, you can talk about it every day if you want. Okay? But what's on this sheet is a ton of discussion questions for couples about sex. And it's really just a bunch of prompts to help you get started. Like, where do I start? What do I talk about? Well, in the building on your experiences section, what do you like most about our lovemaking? And by the way, now this is also FYI, this is also in PDF on the WhatsApp already. Okay, and so, you know, all the handouts I give you or make you aware of, I always put in the WhatsApp and I'll put on the website. But you know, what do you like most about our lovemaking? Wouldn't that be a good question? Or how about what makes you feel the most loved? What would make you feel more loved? Because isn't that one of the big goals? Is to make one another feel loved? What would you like to do more of? Or less of? Or what could be better? I'm just reading through the first ones. I'm not going to go all the way through these. But how important is variety, experimentation, and being adventuresome? How are we doing in that? Okay? How do you feel about our sexual patterns, habits, and routines? How do you feel about the frequency of our lovemaking? Would you prefer more or less? These are good questions, right? Now here's what's going to happen. This is not homework in the sense that you don't have to go through and do each question. This is like an overabundance of questions, some of which are overlapping or redundant. And so just find the questions that seem to, you know, bring something alive for you and your spouse. But what we're asking you is spend some time. Spend an hour or two each week over the next 2 weeks. So when you come back, you know, you've really put some time into it. And this is the sheet that I suggest. Now you could discuss the other slides as well. That's fine too. You can discuss anything, okay? But I'm just giving you this sheet to get you started in the right direction, okay? Get you opening up. Now, let me just say the second section is all about past influences and negative associations. Okay, do you know what a negative association is? Okay, you remember Pavlov's dogs? You learned that in like high school biology or something like that? That Pavlov was this behavioral scientist who did experiments with dogs. And he found that, you know, when he's going to give them food, they start salivating. So what he started doing is he started ringing a bell and then giving him food. And they would salivate, and then they'd eat the food. And then he decided he would just ring the bell, not give them the food, but they'd still salivate. And that's because they made this behavioral connection between two things that were associated. And now they respond to something that's an association, even though the thing that is actually supposed to make them salivate is no longer there.
Right.
So here's what happens with negative associations. Someone has a bad experience in their youth. Maybe someone has bad experiences when they're in their college years. Maybe you had friends who would tell you about stuff, or you had people who were not your friends, and you'd hear about how they behaved and how they talked. And maybe you heard about stuff in church. Maybe you heard about stuff in your family. Maybe you saw stuff in your family that turned you off to certain things. And what happened is you now have a deep-seated negative reaction to something, even though the bad part of it is no longer there. It's either a word or a phrase or a place or a song or something like this, that we can develop negative associations. By the way, I'm alert to what's going on. We can develop negative associations. And And what we have to do is we have to break those associations and go through a process of healing. Okay? So I have a whole section here about, do you have any negative associations or negative experiences related to any of these things? I really want you to go through these things, because you remember the second half of the title is Overcoming Obstacles. Believe me, there are things that are hidden in people's marriages that inhibit them from doing one thing or another for decades. There are things that we just discover. We've been married 33 years, and the more we talk, the more we discover. Oh, really? You didn't like that? And what was that? And
Right.
you know, what was the source of that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. What could I do to help be considerate of you in that situation? What could I do to help you break that association? How could we rediscover innocence and love in various things? How can we break those associations? So those associations, those negative associations and past experiences or influences can really hurt you deep into your marriage.
Right.
And so so in order to overcome that, you have to have some sort of exercise where you're exploring, you're talking about all kinds of stuff to understand what are the negative experiences or associations that we've developed. So this is what we were just talking about, that things change over time. And married sex when you're in your 20s is different than married sex when you're in your 40s, which is different than married sex when you're in your 60s. And there are good biological reasons for this. It's not because someone's not doing their job. Maybe it's because things are changing. Maybe it's because you're experiencing and growing as people. And so you need to continue to grow in your communication and in your relationship so that you can still find a successful type of married sex. So in the clearing obstacles category, it's helpful just to understand that our bodies change, and so things about sex are going to change. So I've just enumerated some of the things that cause real changes in real married couples' ability to enjoy sex in a certain way. So what causes her interest in sex to decline? Okay, so by the way, I've also put in the title, Discrepancies of Desire. So does that ring a bell? Do you understand what I'm saying by discrepancies of desire? That's when one person wants sex more than the other. Mm-hmm. And it may be that during a certain phase of your life, your desire level was pretty matched. Okay? And that's common, especially when you're young and don't have kids. It's not uncommon to have reasonably matched desire levels for sex. But you know what happens is that, first of all, women have, and I'm just going to cover the women and then cover the men, okay? And these are some generalizations, but I think you get the idea. These will resonate with you. You'll say, oh yeah, that's a reality. There are hormonal fluctuations. And those don't need to wait till you get older, right? Those are happening.
Right.
Those are happening every month.
Yeah.
So that's going to be going on in her life. The question is he going to be sensitive to that, aware of that, considerate, gentle, and so forth. And then there's what happens during and after pregnancy. Okay? There's a whole lot of stuff going on in the female body. There are changes going on I'm not here to enumerate all of them, but the point is things are changing. So you've got to be attentive to one another, gentle, considerate. You got to explore, what works for you. Here's why don't we, you got to continue to talk about what might work. I've got this kids oxytocin up there. I heard one married couple talking about how when they first had kids, his wife got so much of her need for skin contact satisfied by her little children.
Right.
Okay, when you have skin to skin contact, there's this hormone which gets released called oxytocin. It provides this feeling of well-being. Well, that's also a very good thing that comes out of sex. So if the new mother is getting tons of snuggles from her little children, it may be that this person called it skin hunger. Her skin hunger is diminished.
Hunger for flesh.
Yeah, for snuggles, for skin and skin contact. Yeah, and so I just put that up. The point is that welcoming children into the family has a variety of effects. Right. Now, does that mean that married sex becomes a dud? No. Okay? God gives us this whole journey. He gives us all these experiences. He wants us to enjoy it, but it will be different. So enjoy it, right? Enjoy it in every phase of life. Because you know what? I used to think, okay, so we could have a lot of sex before the kids came. Then the kids came, and then there's this 24-year period where you're dealing with the kids. And then when the kids are out of the house, then it's going to be like it was in the beginning, right? Guess what? We're 30 years older. So then in of course in a woman's body there's menopause and perimenopause. I'm not an expert on these things. I've learned some things over the years. But anyway, obviously there's tons of hormones racing around. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of things that are changing. And then there's just more pragmatic. There's fatigue, there's busyness, there's body image. Body image is huge because as we age, our bodies change. We put on a little weight maybe. We sag a little bit here or there. Mm-hmm. And body image is a huge killer. Mm. It's a huge killer. And one of the passages I love from Genesis 2, I think it's 2, it says, Adam and Eve were naked and they felt no shame. Mm-hmm. And we've held that up as an ideal, right? That we don't say one thing negative about one another's bodies. You know what? That still doesn't cause body image problems to go away. I can praise Susan from top to bottom. Yeah. Okay. What I mean is, I can praise her all day long.
Right.
Okay? And she may not still believe me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She may still doubt me. She may doubt my sincerity. She may say, yeah, but he sees what I see. You know what? Mm. So it is a matter of personal growth to love what your spouse has got.
Right.
Okay? Right. And to let the other things go. Mm. And let me just say on the other side, it's not what you've got that matters as much in the bedroom as how you use it. Right. Yeah. The attitude you bring with it. Right. The degree of remember those attitude words? The degree of eagerness, willingness, willing to invite the other, the willing to be uninhibited. The ability to be uninhibited. And body image sounds neutral, but what we really mean is negative body image.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens, is when we think, oh, I'm too fat, or oh, I'm too this, heaven forbid, he doesn't like my hair, she doesn't like my, whatever.
Yeah.
When we have a negative body image, it inhibits us from being able to truly give. So it's super, super important to build one another up. Build one another up. And oh, by the way, maybe you can think of the classic trap, which is the wife is trying on a dress, and she says, "Does this make me look fat?" And it's a trap! It's a trap!
Don't answer that.
Okay, now let me just say that Susan and I have worked on that. And she actually values my feedback. But I've learned not to say things in ways which trigger the trap.
Right.
And she's not intentionally trapping. But I think this outfit is more flattering on you than that outfit. Now, we've learned, that goes down well with us. Another couple, that may not go down well. Okay,
Right.
so, because in her mind, the alarms may go off. Oh, he thinks I'm fat. And so it's really important, in order to overcome body image problems, negative body image, that each of you do as much as possible in your own heart, just to say, I love the person that God gave me. And I love him or her just this way, and I'm gonna build them up. I'm gonna appreciate them for who they are, what they've got, and then for the other person to be willing to receive that. Right?
Yeah.
To accept that unconditional love.
Yeah.
Focused on having fun on vacation.
There you go.
That's it.
Focused on having fun on vacation. Not like, oh, I wish we were at Disney World. Okay. And then among men, for men, the issue is often wrapped up in what's called performance anxiety, or otherwise known as erectile dysfunction, which I like to refer to sometimes as erectile unpredictability, or erectile unreliability. I don't like calling it dysfunction, but let me just tell you, no one ever told me that when I was in my 50s that things wouldn't work the same way. No one ever told me that. Well, hormonal changes and the testosterone declines is a standard physiological process. The decline is going on, from when men are in their 20s, which is when they're at their peak in sexual performance-wise, they're declining. Their testosterone is declining. It may be slow, such that they never really experience a problem. Okay, but it may hit them in midlife. It may hit them in later life. Okay, it's just that things change, and so it manifests sometimes as, okay, we need to try different things in order to get the equipment to work, or it may be that we need to just give it a little bit more time and attention.
Yeah.
Or it may be, actually there are stress, medications, other health problems. There are reasons why the equipment, it doesn't work as well. And so just be aware, and appreciate every phase of life and be really understanding of one another and communicate about how to make something beautiful out of what you got.
Right.
Okay? And fatherhood and new parenthood can add stresses and busyness and so forth. So that can also have a negative effect on new dads.